Welcome back to Free Agent Frenzy. This is part 3 of all the NHL free agent signings. We have plenty more players to discuss today. We'll jump into all that coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We're review and discuss all 31 NHL teams. So if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned, welcome back to the Free Agent Frenzy here. We continue on with part 3 of all the different free agent signings that we've seen here over the July 1st and now into July 2nd signing period of free agency here at the NHL. Obviously, there's plenty more deals that we need to discuss that we didn't get to yet in part 1 and 2 that either came after the fact, and now we're into July 2nd. Which we have the first big one, which is the real deal. James Neal going to the Calgary Flames on a 5-year deal. Obviously, James Neal, formerly the Vegas Golden Knights, has bounced around a bit now in his career. We've seen him play with other teams like Dallas and Pittsburgh and Nashville. Vegas, obviously, last season. Now he's off to the Calgary Flames. Obviously, it looks like the Vegas Golden Knights did not want to give him the longer term. I'm not sure if it was more the term than the money or a combination of both, but it was reported that he was looking for around $6 million in that 4 or 5 year term. Obviously, the Calgary Flames didn't have any issues doing that, but obviously Vegas did, so they'll take him on here, and I think he'll fit nicely into their top 6 forward group. Obviously, they already made a trade earlier with the Carolina Hurricanes, bringing in Noah Hannafin as well as Elias Lindholm, moving out Michael Ferland and Dougie Hamilton. So if you look at their top 6 now in Calgary, obviously you get the big boys like Monahan and Gaudreau. You could see possibly Lindholm play on that line, or maybe James Neal plays that role as well, or Neal can slot on that second line as well with Matthew Tkachuk. So they're certainly looking a lot more offensively gifted here in the top 6 forward group, I think, for the Calgary Flames. So I think this is a great deal for them. Hopefully he can get back to his 25 to 30 goal scoring ways here. James Neal's been a pretty consistent scorer throughout his career. Obviously had a pretty solid year in Vegas last year, scoring 25 goals. So we'll see if he can keep that up. Obviously, I know at his age now, I think term was a little bit more of a concern for some teams, especially Vegas, wanting to give some opportunities to their younger guys. So it's unfortunate things couldn't be worked out so he can remain to be a Golden Knight. But I think he'll do just fine in Calgary, and I really like this signing by the Flames. They certainly needed to add some more of an offensive spark for sure, and hopefully he can be that guy and provide that to them long term, and he can continue to be the real deal, as he likes to call himself here. Now, there's plenty of other signings to jump into. Obviously, James Neal's signing was just announced this morning on July 2nd, so obviously he's the latest one to be announced, but there's still some signings left over from July 1st that I was not able to get to yesterday. Unfortunately, in the middle of the afternoon, as we're in the middle of making all these videos, my internet decided to crash and go down. So after we put out part 2 of the free agent signings yesterday, unfortunately my hands were tied and was unable to upload any additional content as we were waiting for that to be fixed. And obviously up here in Canada it was a holiday as well, so made things a little bit more challenging, but we're back in action today and moving forward. So also responding to that is if I was a little slower responding to comments than usual, that's also was why as well. But we're back in action today, back to normal, so hopefully everything will remain well here moving forward. But of all days for the internet to crash on the busiest news day of the year, certainly wasn't too pleased, but hey, what can you do? It's kind of out of my hands, but like I said, we're back at it today. Back in action. Now let's jumping into these other signings here. There's plenty more to talk about. The Columbus Blue Jackets have signed center Riley Nash, formerly of the Boston Bruins, to a 3-year deal. Obviously, Riley Nash had an excellent year last year and a very much of a bargain contract for the Bruins. I know they probably would have been very interested in keeping Nash, but obviously due to his season last year, you knew he was going to get a big raise, and they just were not in a position to be able to offer him that type of money. So I think Riley Nash will end up being a pretty solid signing for Columbus. Likely playing, 3rd to 4th line center duties, but either way, if he can continue his play like he did in Boston last year, then I think Nash will be a great fit for Columbus. Riley Nash's contract gives him an annual average value of $2.75 million, which is a fairly substantial raise over what he made in Boston last season. Another notable signing here was New York Islanders signing a former Leaf forward Leo Komarov. Obviously, he ended up getting a 4-year deal from Lou Lamoriello and the Islanders, which was a little bit surprising on the term. Leo Komarov ends up getting a longer-term deal, obviously, from the Islanders here. Like I mentioned, he gets $3 million per season for 4 years, so the contract's worth $12 million total. It's a little bit surprising that he got that much, to be completely honest, but it had been speculated over the days leading up to free agency during the interview period that he was talking to some teams in New York. It was believed that he may actually land with the Rangers, but he goes to the Islanders instead. 4 years, $3 million for Uncle Leo. Colorado Avalanche have signed veteran forward Matt Calvert to a 3-year contract. Obviously, he's another guy who's kind of known as a hard-working player around the league and was believed to not likely be staying with his former club in Columbus. So he's off to Colorado on a 3-year deal. So that's a pretty good, solid deal for Calvert, making $2.8 million per season. The Anaheim Ducks have picked up veteran defenseman Luke Schenn on a very small contract, 1-year contract worth $800,000. Obviously, Schenn's career is kind of on the back end, on the back nine here, as we say. Luke Schenn's contract with the Anaheim Ducks is worth 1 year, $800,000, so it's a very, affordable contract to give him a chance to see if he can rebound a little bit. Obviously, he's bounced around a lot here in his career, really ever since playing some time in Toronto where he started, got traded obviously to the Flyers, and ever since he's moved on from Philadelphia, he's kind of bounced around a fair bit, certainly nearing the end of his career by the looks of it, but he signs on with the Ducks for 1 year, $800,000. The New York Rangers have signed defenseman Fred Claesson, formerly of Ottawa, on a 1 year, $700 contract. Another guy who's kind of trying to reprove himself here. He had a pretty good year a couple years ago, had a good playoff run, but last year kind of fell out of favor, didn't get as much playing time, so he didn't get qualified as an RFA, became a UFA, and now he's a member of the New York Rangers, except on a 1 year deal worth $700,000. So that might prove to be a pretty effective pickup by the New York Rangers for sure if he can rebound and get playing like he was a couple seasons ago. The Boston Bruins have signed Joakim Nordstrom to a 2-year deal at $1 million per season. So obviously he'll get a chance to play with their forward group there. Obviously after losing Riley Nash, they went out and signed Nordstrom to a little bit smaller contract. The Pittsburgh Penguins have signed forward Jimmy Hayes on a very low-term contract here, 1 year, $650K. He may or may not actually have a chance really to make that roster. Obviously, Jimmy Hayes is trying to reprove himself, taking such a small valued contract here. So if, the Penguins likely aren't too concerned losing him on waivers if need be, if they have to send him down to the American Hockey League. But $650K is the value there. If he can earn himself a shot to be a depth player, it might just prove to be a good value. But obviously, Jimmy Hayes has had a hard time kind of getting a lot of playing time here in the NHL the past couple seasons. So we'll see what happens with Hayes in Pittsburgh. But certainly, it's a very low-risk contract by the Penguins, so we'll see if that works out. The Edmonton Oilers have signed a couple of forwards here worth noting. They've signed center Kyle Brodziak, formerly of St. Louis. Brodziak, played with the Oilers in the past as well, so he's familiar with a fair bit of the team, and obviously the team is familiar with him. So that should work out pretty solid for him to be a fourth-line center. Brodziak certainly brings a fair bit of experience now to the team. Brodziak signed on for 2 years with an annual value of $1.15 million, so a pretty decent contract for a fourth-line guy. So the Oilers are looking to hopefully that he can add some veteran leadership there in the bottom six. And they've also brought in Tobias Rieder, obviously, who formerly of the LA Kings was not qualified as an RFA, was getting a fair bit of interest on the free agent market that we discussed here in previous days leading up to all these signings being announced. So Rieder ends up signing with the Edmonton Oilers, gets a 1 year deal at $2 million. So hopefully he'll have a chance to play with all those skilled guys there in Edmonton. Hopefully have an opportunity to kind of establish himself and prove himself as being NHL worthy and be able to hopefully sign an extension. Hopefully things work out for him with the Edmonton Oilers. Now the Minnesota Wild did a ton of signings yesterday. A lot of them came later in the day, and most of it happened after my internet had crashed for the day, so we weren't able to squeeze these into previous videos. So the Minnesota Wild, a lot of these signings here are short-term, 1-2 year deals. I think there's ones a little bit longer. Most of them are smaller values as well. But let's jump in here. They've signed, I believe it's 5 or 6 players that they've signed here. So they signed goaltender Andrew Hammond, formerly of Ottawa and Colorado. He got a 1 year deal at $650K. They signed veteran center Eric Fair to a 1 year contract as well. They signed JT Brown, formerly of the Anaheim Ducks, to a 2 year contract. They signed veteran defenseman Matt Bartkowski. He's been around for a while now. He got a 1 year deal. We've got veteran defenseman Greg Pattern signed a 3 year deal with $2.25 million. So that one's a little bit more significant. Pattern likely will be a third pair defense guy for the Minnesota Wild, as well as defenseman Nick Seeler, who also got a 3 year contract as well. His value is a little bit lower, $725,000. So Seeler and Pattern very well might be their third pair guys or battling for that 6-7 spot. Hard to say, but either way, they're guys that certainly a little bit more likely to get some playing time with Minnesota. And they also signed veteran forward Matt Hendricks to a 1 year deal at $700,000. So lots of signings there for the Minnesota Wild. Nothing too significant, but a lot of depth pieces, and a lot of them have veteran experience. So might prove to be quite valuable down the road here. The last signing we're going to discuss here is the Montreal Canadiens signing forward Matthew Pekka, formerly of the Tampa Bay Lightning, to a 2 year deal worth just over $1 million per season. So Matthew Pekka will likely get more of an opportunity to play in Montreal than he did in Tampa. Hopefully that all works out for him. Obviously that we're waiting for the Habs to kind of maybe try to land a top center Obviously, they got their top guy available in the draft in Kotkaniemi. They haven't really done much since. They brought back Thomas Plekanec. They were rumored to be in on O'Reilly. That never happened. There was speculation that the asking price from the Sabres was at least 2, maybe 3 first-round picks. I'm not sure if there's any truth to that. But when I believe Mark Bergevin was asked about after the deal went down, sending O'Reilly to the Blues, and he seemed to think the asking price was even higher than what the Blues ended up paying for O'Reilly. And that wouldn't be a surprise. Oftentimes, when you do see trades within divisions, oftentimes the asking price is higher. If they're going to help one of their rivals get stronger, then they want even more in return. So it wouldn't be a complete shock if that was true. Either way, it didn't happen. Obviously, the Habs need to continue looking for some depth here at center ice. They've been linked to a lot of guys, and so far, none of it has come to be. So keep your eyes on them. I'm sure they're still going to continue to work on that. So there's certainly some notable names still remaining out there in the free agent list. Likely going to be doing a video here probably tomorrow if none of these other guys get signed. We could very well be doing another part 4 to this series, talking about more signings if we have more between today or into tomorrow. And if not, we'll have a look later on. Our next video, it might just be guys that are still looking for contracts, because there's still some notable names out there that are looking to get some deals finalized. Now, if you're new to the channel here, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams. There's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.